All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the Gaining Ground webinar. We're going to wait just a few more minutes as we let people filter in, and we'll get started here in just a couple minutes. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started here. Again, welcome to the Gaining Ground webinar series. So a little bit of background information on the series here. It is organized by the Urban Food Systems graduate student cohort as a way to provide agricultural educators with tools and skills to be able to support urban food systems and enterprises. Topics of the Gaining Ground webinar series usually focus on topics or skills that will support UFS enterprises and programs. It is also funded by the North Central SARE PDP under the project titled Capacity Building in Urban Food Systems in the North Central Region. Today, our topic is facilitating on-farm learning through the Growing Growers Apprenticeship. And today we are joined by Courtney Becker, the Growing Growers Program Coordinator, and Claire Barnhart, the Growing Growers Program Associate. So I will let them introduce themselves a little bit and get us started today.
Hi, my name is Courtney Becker. I am the program coordinator for the Growing Growers Farm Apprenticeship Program. I'm also pursuing a Ph.D. in horticulture and natural resources through the Olathe Horticulture Research and Extension Center. Very happy to be here. I'll pass it to Claire for introductions.
Hey everyone, my name is Claire Barnhart, and I'm excited to share with you a little bit of information about the Growing Growers Apprenticeship Program and the Apprenticeship Boot Camp series that we have put together and some of the resources associated with that as well today. Courtney, go ahead and we can kick off this presentation.
Wonderful. I am sharing my screen. Can you see it? I'm just going to assume that you can see my screen. Okay,
Yes.
so this this webinar is titled Facilitating the On-Farm Learning Through the Growing Growers Apprenticeship Program. Just to provide you an overview of what we're going to be covering today, I'm going to establish why there is a need for apprenticeship programs, particularly within our Kansas-Missouri region, identify the mission, history, and evolution of growing growers, tell you about some of our graduate outcomes, kind of walk through our program model, identify the 2 different track options that we offer, some of our workshops, online course, and policies that we have within our program. And then Claire's going to walk you through our program toolkit, which is basically everything that we use to help keep us organized throughout running the apprenticeship program. So just to introduce you to our internal staff, because we are small but mighty, we are led by Dr. Kerry Rivard. He is the program director. Semra Fetahovic is also a program associate. Claire Barnhart is the other program associate. I am the coordinator for the program. And then we have 3 additional roles that were kind of added within the last couple of years. Really focusing on Kansas-wide expansion and Missouri-wide expansion. Our Kansas-wide expansion coordinators are Abby Drought and Sarah Stafford, and our Missouri-wide expansion coordinator is Shaylin Bell. I also really want to emphasize too that this is a partnership program, so we rely heavily on the help of the organizations listed on this slide to keep the program running from year to year, help us kind of brainstorm workshop ideas for the season, and all that jazz. So, local food matters. If you're on this call, I'm sure you're quite aware of this. Local producers contribute to the local economy, creating jobs and improving community growth. Small farms also have increased yields, crop diversity, and biodiversity that's larger than or greater than large farms. So this helps to reduce the environmental footprint of farming. And small farms also help improve food security. They dominate local food channels, and consumer demand for local foods equates to about $20 billion. There is a $177 million unmet demand for specialty crop production in this region. And so that's kind of one of the drivers behind this program is to help create more specialty crop farmers in this region. The history of growing growers is as follows. It was started by local farmers and Kansas State University in 2004, really kind of emerged from a need to include and develop more vendors for the Brookside Farmers Market. It was supported by the NCR SARE grant that's listed there. A greatest challenge for market farmers is really earning a reasonable living. However, higher levels of education, i.e., an apprenticeship program, kind of equates to better wages in the long run for farmers. This kind of leads to improved qualities, work skills, and attributes as well. We have a very integrated program that relies heavily on non-for-profits that operate within Kansas City. They provide partnerships and credibility to our program. They participate in our organizing committee. They collaborate with us on everything from like workshops to events and more, and then really just kind of help coordinate the Kansas City food system as a whole so that we're not overlapping in what we're providing to prospective growers and current growers as well. Our mission really is to connect beginning growers with established specialty crop production farms to get them that on-farm training experience. We also want to continue supporting growers who are currently operating with educational opportunities and resources, and create opportunities for growers and new growers to build community with one another. So we provide education to new and experienced growers through our farm apprenticeship program, our online course, our annual workshop series. We have a resource page on our website that's pretty extensive that we keep up to date regularly. And then we also operate a listserv, which several of the organizations listed on these previous slides contribute to as well. The program has evolved since its inception, of course. From 2009 to 2011, it was run by the Kansas Rural Center, who still serves on our organizing committee to this day. From 2012 to 2015, there was sustained phase. There wasn't really much growth happening. From 2016 to 2022, there was pretty moderate growth that occurred largely due to the support from some of the graduate research assistants listed on this slide. People conducted a program review and a needs assessment just to really identify like what our farmers needed and how the program could grow from here. From 2022 to 2025, there was an explosive growth and capacity. We had several grant projects funded. This helped to really scale up our program delivery and hire some full-time staff members who we listed on one of our first slides. So we have obviously some current efforts that we're going through. Vanessa Whalen is a current graduate student within the Urban Food Systems program. She's funded by an NCR SARE GS grant, and she's conducting a mental health needs assessment for farmers in this region. We've really, in our the past couple of years through a Beginning Farmer Rancher Development Grant have been focusing on statewide and regional expansion into Missouri and Kansas to provide some of our farmers in those regions with apprentices, and then also, of course, train apprentices in those regions. Claire's been working pretty extensively on developing an apprenticeship toolkit to kind of send out to people who might want to start apprenticeship programs in their regions. We've also been working on further developing our online course content. We added a cut flower module this year, and we're pretty excited about that. And then we've also had a lot of discussions recently surrounding offering our training program to incarcerated individuals and then kind of completing a registered apprenticeship program with the states of Kansas and Missouri to provide that added level of credibility to our program. We have some pretty stellar graduate outcomes, if I might say so myself. We've graduated 250 apprentices since 2004. Some of our program graduates go on to start their own farms. In fact, we have several farms within our program who were once apprentices. So that's Mellow Fields, Sacred Sun Cooperative Farm, and I think Two Birds as well. Some of our program graduates go on to train new apprentices at other apprenticeship programs, work in farm adjacent jobs like doing food systems programming, and or went on to graduate school even after that. 21% of our graduates begin their own farming operation, and then 66% continue to work or volunteer on a farm after our program. So just to give you an overview of how the program functions, we are, like I've heavily stated thus far, a partnership farm apprenticeship program. So we rely on a lot of the work from our partners to help run this program. And apprentices engage in hands-on farm work at their chosen host farm, receive 12 months access to an extensive online course, attend a series of in-person workshops and farm tours throughout the season as well. So the contributing factors into Growing Growers are university and extension agents and our nonprofit groups. The university and extension agents help offer advanced trainings to existing and beginning farmers through the program as well. Growing community is kind of like inherently part of the program, but the apprenticeship program also helps to grow community. We contribute to our food system by holding a yearly workshop series, running the apprenticeship program, offering that social media and listserv access to kind of promote events and opportunities within this region, and then, yes, advanced trainings. Our apprenticeship program really consists of four main parts. First and most importantly is the fieldwork aspect. So if you are getting that hands-on learning experience at your chosen host farm, these can include duties like transplanting or weeding, or things like marketing and sales through farmers markets. We also offer one-on-one training in which the farm apprenticeship track apprentices, which I'll be discussing what that entails on our next slide, receive like direct mentorship from their host farmer. And that's 8 to 12 hours of training on whatever the apprentice is interested in learning about. The apprentice and the host farm must also complete an online form to document that these training hours occurred. Thirdly, we offer farm tours and workshops. These are held monthly from February to September and are free for apprentices. These tend to cover topics relevant to sustainable farming, and we try to always end the workshop with a farm tour so that our apprentices kind of get a larger perspective of what different farming operations look like within the Kansas City area. Apprentices are required to attend 3 out of the 4 core apprenticeship events. Just because, again, they cover kind of essential farming practices like how to set up drip tape and other irrigation options, and soil management. Our apprentices are also permitted to attend other Growing Growers partner workshops for free. So we really try to hone in on the fact that this is your opportunity to learn for free. Please take advantage of that. We also host an online course through Kansas State University's Global Campus. It covers 13 module topics like business planning, equipment, soils, pests, and disease management, and again, other topics that are really relevant to startup growers. Our online course includes lectures from local growers, from extension and university, agricultural experts, discussions, optional assignments, and then supplemental materials as well. So just to kind of identify what these two tracks are, they are very similar. So that what they receive from the program is going to be the same. It's going to be an online course access for 12 months, books and other supplemental materials to support the online course, and then the free participation in workshops and farm tours. The difference here is that the farm apprenticeship track kind of does more work. So they work 20 to 40 hours per week on a given production farm with the hours and pay agreed upon with the host farm. They complete that 8 to 10 hours of one-on-one training with their host farmer, complete a pre and post skills evaluation, and then also complete a program evaluation at the end of the season. On the other hand, the Explore Farming track really just works 4 to 8 hours per week on a farm, kind of dipping their toes into the farming experience. The one-on-one training details as follows. So the host farmers serve as mentors to the apprentices and provide training on specific areas like soil building, crop rotations, production planning, literally anything that the apprentice needs or feels that they need additional assistance on. These hours may be unpaid, but we provide an online form for apprentices to track the completion of these training hours. These are our core workshops for the 2026 season. Generally, we try to cover the same workshops from year to year, although there might be some variability. So we try to do like an irrigation and a soils workshop every year, in addition to post-harvest handling. Sometimes we do like equipment. So this year we're doing a tool library demonstration with Cultivate KC. And these are some of our photos from last year's workshop season. Apprentices are responsible for attending at least 3 out of the 4 core workshops. If they are unable to make it to this particular number of workshops, we really encourage them to try to make these up by attending one of the elective workshops that we typically provide. This season, however, there are a plethora of Kansas City food system events occurring, so we are just kind of throwing that over to our partnership organizations and having their workshops serve as our apprentices' elective workshops for the season. As previously mentioned, these workshop and event fees are waived for the apprentices, even with our partnership events, and we really try to encourage as many elective workshops as possible. These are some of the books that we offer to our apprentices at our core events. They can change season to season, but generally we try to accompany them with pamphlets, brochures, flyers, and more. If we have expansion apprentices, we can either like mail them the books, give them to their host farm, or give them to our expansion coordinators to give them to the apprentices directly. We try to give out about 12 to 15 books per season, and when you apply for the program and pay your tuition, that's part of what your tuition is covering, is these books. So apprentices have 12 months access to a completely self-paced online course that features 13 modules: plant propagation, production planning, soils management, crop production, microclimate modification, post-harvest handling and food safety, irrigation, equipment, integrated pest management, marketing, cut flower production, farm management, and farm startup. Literally everything you would need to know from the beginning of the season to the end of the season to run a farm efficiently. Each module includes lectures from KSU faculty, local farmers, experts, supplemental resources, optional discussion boards, and module quizzes. Through successful participation in the online course, so basically if the apprentice gets an 80% on all of their quizzes, they have the opportunity to receive a micro-credential, which is basically just a digital badge that lets prospective employers know that you have this accredited apprenticeship experience. The apprentices are also permitted to retake quizzes, so if they don't hit that 80% mark right away, they can go back, retake that quiz until they reach the 80%. So this is, yeah, just one way to showcase what you've learned in the apprenticeship program. We do require program tuition, so apprentices pay a $500 or $250 fee depending on the track. This fee covers the cost of the online course, farm tours, course materials, books, and host farm one-on-one hours if doing the full apprenticeship track. Through our BFRDP grant that we currently have, we're able to offer sliding scale scholarships at 50, 75, and 100% coverage. As apprentices apply to the program, we make sure to send them the scholarship form, just so everyone is aware that that is an available source for them. At least, we also split the tuition payments up into two payments for ease of access, so at least half of the tuition cost is due at the first farm tour, and the remainder should be submitted no later than June. We use CashNet to process our payments, and again, email that link to all of our apprentices as well. We really try to stress to our apprentices that when you sign up for this program, you're entering two different agreements. One with us, where we agree to manage the online course, your core curriculum, manage in-person event logistics and registration, manage the application and recruitment process of apprentices and host farm, lead on program and apprentice evaluation, facilitate the Growing Growers listserv, serve as a third-party liaison and conflict management resource for farmers and apprentices if anything arises, and pay host farmers for 8 to 12 hours of one-on-one training at $300 per season. The Growing Growers apprentice agrees to pay the program tuition fees, work at host farm anywhere from 8 to 40 hours per week, usually between May through October. That start and end date is kind of flexible and usually is to be determined with your host farm site. The apprentices agree to attend all core apprenticeship events, at least with a minimum of 3, and attend as many elective workshops as possible. They must complete the online course within 12 months of the start date, complete one-on-one training hours with their host farmer, and submit this training record by August 1st, again, if they are completing that full apprenticeship track, and then complete a pre and post skills evaluation if they are part of that full apprenticeship track. And then you also enter an agreement with your farmer. So the host farm agrees to be entirely responsible for wages and any employment benefits to be paid to the apprentice and communicating these before the start of the apprenticeship. They're responsible for setting the work start date and end date, working activity schedule for the apprentice, and communicating all of that in a timely and professional manner. Provide that 8 to 12 hours of training, provide flexibility in working hours to apprentices in order to attend in-person farm tours and workshops, and communicate all expectations in terms of working at the host farm with the apprentice. Because of this two agreements, we really strongly suggest that farmers and apprentices write down a basic set of expectations for the apprentice. Like, we have the expectations that we have for our apprentices, but it's going to be different for what the apprentice needs to complete for their host farm. So these include like start and end dates for the apprenticeship, what the schedule is going to look like, rate of pay and other compensation, core responsibilities, and other important details that come with working at a farm. And we do have a conflict policy because ultimately farm work is hard, stressful work, and it's not unusual for issues to arise between a farm supervisor and an employee or volunteer. Initially, we try to encourage these conflicts to be addressed by the host farm and the apprentice, but if the resolution is not successful, we can try to step in to resolve the situation to everyone's satisfaction. If the issues can't be resolved, the apprentice is more than welcome to leave that host farm, and continue attending the workshops for free. We can try to place them on another host farm. However, that's not always going to be feasible, especially if it's mid-season. And same thing, we can try to replace the apprentice at a given host farm, but might not always be feasible. Because of this, we do encourage all host farmers and apprentices to sign the apprenticeship agreement form at the beginning of the season, just to hold all parties accountable. With every organization, there's challenges and opportunities. As always, since we are a nonprofit, funding opportunities are kind of challenging to come by. Staffing capacity is always a consideration. We have a pretty small staff. We're not always going to be able to do every big idea that we come up with. It's kind of difficult to maintain consistent communication with program participants. Even if we over communicate, that's not always returned back to us. And it's kind of difficult to maintain farm variability in terms of site type, rate of pay, experience, whether that's like hydroponics or um, more livestock driven. We are a specialty crop primarily focused apprenticeship program, so sometimes we have to kind of keep that in mind when we're accepting farms into the program. We also have several opportunities for growth. We have had several discussions about completing a registered apprenticeship program just to, again, provide more credibility to the program. Partnering with corrections facilities to provide our online course to them, and then trying to balance flexibility of the program with also holding people accountable and making sure that they complete their online course and complete and fulfill all of the duties of the apprenticeship program. And then also creating more unifying experiences across farms for all of our apprentices, and then creating more network opportunities. That's pretty much feedback we get every year, is that all of our apprentices want more opportunities to network with one another. I will pass it over to Claire.
All right, thank you, Courtney, for giving us that overview of the Growing Growers Apprenticeship Program. Now I'm going to move into the second part of today's talk, where we're going to break down the Apprenticeship Model Toolkit. There is a link in the chat where you can find our resources page on growinggrowers.org, or you could just go to that. And then on that page, there's a link to the Growing Growers Apprenticeship Bootcamp booklet. Within that booklet is the Apprenticeship Model Toolkit, where we outlined a bunch of information for people that are looking to dive into apprenticeship programs, maybe creating their own in the future or in a different region. So I'm going to go through some of the nuts and bolts of that with you today. Again, there is a whole lot more detail if you actually go through that booklet, but we don't have time for every single tool that we use in this webinar. So the first thing that we talk about in the toolkit is the importance of developing a working program manual for all program staff to access, so everyone can be on the same page about how things are operating. It's really important to have all of the important staff contacts and job descriptions, a detailed annual timeline for everyone to follow, workshop planning information, a marketing plan, host farmer recruitment and support items, as well as apprentice recruitment and paperwork that everyone can follow along with. And then some tips on how to facilitate the online course and how to successfully wrap up the season. So for our general internal program organization, we have some roles that Courtney touched on earlier. These include program director, associates coordinator, and our expansion coordinators. The main role of the program director is to manage the finances, do project and grant management, help with some online course content building, and continue supporting the team in the execution of projects. Program associates help coordinate internal meetings, facilitate the online course, grading all those quizzes and making sure all that material is up to date. Try to keep communication with host farmers consistent, as well as do maintenance with the listserv and the website. It's also important for us to make sure we try to update our internal manual. The program coordinator, so right now that's Courtney, she does a ton of marketing work, has been working on a lot of workshop coordination, communicating a ton with apprentices. We have a lot this year, so that's been really exciting. And then she also helps make sure that we get all of our forms and paperwork and evaluations in check. Our expansion coordinators in Kansas and Missouri have been working hard to identify and maintain new host farmers and apprentices in those different regions, and coordinate in-person opportunities for them so that they're still in the loop with the program, even though they aren't directly located in Kansas City. And so I have a note here that says biweekly meetings with your internal team are vital for keeping everyone on the same page. And I think that's been really important for us, especially since we have so many people involved across different areas geographically as well. So for our program, we use Google Drive and we use OneDrive. This way we can kind of keep internal and external documents separate from each other. So a lot of our internal things like meeting notes and apprentice tracking and all of that, we keep in a OneDrive file. And then the Google Drive is more shareable for getting forms out to apprentices and host farms. And so that's what we use for more of our external communications and record keeping. So some things that we have internally in that OneDrive are the program team spreadsheet. This includes information on organizing committee members, their contacts, and who they're affiliated with, as well as information on our host farms, and then some information about the host farm site visit statuses. Whenever, we have the opportunity to check in with them, we can kind of keep track of who we've caught up with and who we still need to touch base with. Another important spreadsheet for us is the apprentice tracking spreadsheet. And so this gets a lot of use, especially at the front end of the season, really all the way through the season, but it's really, really important whenever we are trying to make sure everyone gets matched with an appropriate host farm. And so for each applicant, we want to write out their contact information, what track they're interested in participating in, as well as if they've paid tuition, if they're receiving a scholarship, their host farmer matching status, and then later throughout the season, we want to make sure to use this to keep track of their workshop attendance so they are reaching that 3 out of 4 workshop attendance policy.
So something that I initiated within the program was this apprentice matching spreadsheet. Basically, it works through utilizing a Google Sheet API, which is kind of like a Google Sheet behind the scenes code to identify the mileage between a point A and point B. In this case, point A is our host farm list, and point B is the address that an apprentice gives us when they apply. It really just allows us to nail down farms that are located near the apprentice, hopefully reducing their travel time in the process of completing their apprenticeship program. And this is just kind of like our starting point before kind of getting into the deeper details of like, what does the apprentice want to learn? Are they more interested in like fruit crops or traditional like tree crops? So yeah, that's been kind of a helpful sheet that we've relied heavily on the past couple of years.
Yes, that has been really helpful for us, especially this time of year, making sure all of our apprentice ducks are in a row. So as far as an annual timeline to kind of give you all a visual idea of how things go, this isn't a comprehensive graphic of all of the activities that we do, but it just kind of gives you the gist. So in the fall, that's when we're going to do our paperwork collection, get those evaluations in, one-on-one time tracking cards, things like that. We always have an apprentice recognition at the OREC field day, usually in late August. And then we also try to have an apprentice debrief meeting where we can touch base on everyone, see what their next steps are, and have an in-person evaluation sit down with people or online. We've done it both, but we just something that's not just a form that people fill out. We just want to have some time carved out to sit down with folks. In the winter, we have at least 3 organizing committee meetings, and these are mainly used for workshop planning. I'll get into this a little more on the next slides. We start marketing and we get applications going live in December. And so this is when things start rolling in. We have to start processing those applications. And then we try to also take some time here to touch base with our host farmers, make sure all their information is correct and up to date before we roll into a new season. And then all I have written here for spring is apprentice orientation and season kickoff. That actually happened for us last week. And so we are right here in the middle of this season. And yeah, it's just making sure that everyone has their correct host farm, everyone is communicated to about what their expectations are, and everyone starts getting their paperwork and their enrollment in the online course going. And we just get the season off to a strong start. In the summer, this is when the apprentices start getting busy with their field work at their host farms. They may attend the workshop series that we have laid out for them. They should be getting into their online coursework at this point. And we also want to take time during the summer season to touch base with folks while they're at their host farms, do some visits with them, make sure everything is going okay. And then we also this year want to have a summer host farmer meeting that's just for the host farmers, so that way that they can all share their experiences and things that they have learned with each other. So some more information about the organizing committee and the importance of that, which is something that, as Courtney said several times, is a really important part of the structure of this program. It's something that we would recommend to anyone else trying to structure a program similarly to ours. Just having that community support is huge. They offer ongoing input and feedback on program functioning. They really help us promote the program with outreach and marketing. And then they can also offer experience and technical skills for other folks in the program. And like I mentioned, it's really important to have these 3 meetings with the organizing committee in the off season. And they have a few responsibilities. You know, if they say they're going to help partner with us and create a workshop opportunity, then they are expected to, host that and make sure most of the logistics for that are taken care of. But then we also are committed to creating an Eventbrite for the registration, promoting that event extensively, and then also supporting as needed on the day of that event. And so we definitely owe a lot of our workshop organization and promotion to our wonderful partners. And yeah, that's just something that we would definitely recommend to anyone looking to have a similar program. So we mainly use the second and third organizing committee meetings to really nail down the official plan for the workshop series of the next season. And so we do use a shared spreadsheet for this that everyone can have access to. And this way, everything is delegated and it stays very organized. So that way, when we all get busy during the summer season, we can just chug right along with that. Remember, if you are organizing workshops, especially with partners, that you collect survey data. This is not just important for grant reporting, but it's also important to see, what do people actually want to attend and keep coming back to. One thing we've started using in the last few years is a shared event calendar, and this is something that we have used through Airtable. And so this just allows us and a lot of our partner organizations to post events in a central location. So this is something that's also up on our website. And you can input all sorts of information onto this shared calendar. You can have, the location, whether it's online. Um, there's a whole bunch of different filters. And so, if you are looking to use this calendar, you can actually go in and filter like what events are in my location. And that's what will show up on the calendar. So that's been really helpful for us, especially partnering with folks in expansion regions. Hopefully that can streamline things for participants a little bit. This also just helps us and other folks in our area make sure that we don't double book on each other. It's always a bummer whenever we're looking at the calendar for the month and there's like 3 soils workshops back to back, or multiple things on the same day, and it's like, oh, this could have been consolidated and organized a little bit better. So this is what we've started using to try to help with that, and it's definitely been really good when working with all those partners. So another thing that the organizing committee does is help us just double check our textbook list every year before going into the apprenticeship season. We have a working inventory sheet where we can make sure that we have enough to go around. Apprentices always enjoy getting their books at workshops, and so it's important to make sure that we have enough with plenty of time in advance. And that, all the information is up to date. And so it helps to get feedback from these folks in the organizing committee as well. So just a couple notes on the online course aspect of the program. It was originally a product of a KDA grant that came through after COVID. And so it was really developed in the first half of 2023 season. We created this spreadsheet to help us keep accountable with getting content out there in a timely manner that season. And just to make sure we have all the videos, quizzes, and the gathering of supplemental materials that we needed to make sure it was all ready for apprentices going through the course that season. The online course itself has really helped with the expansion of the program. It's really helped make a lot of this information accessible to other folks that maybe otherwise couldn't show up to such an extensive workshop series with all of this, information every single time. So yeah, one thing that I would really recommend to anyone building an online course similar to this, especially when it is a big team of folks helping make sure the apprenticeship keeps going, is having correct answers written. And so that way, that's going to be a way to have consistent grading. It is a 12-month course, and so you just want to make sure that people that take the quiz in May are getting the same grading standards as they do if they wait until December to take it. And so that just helps with the consistency. Right now, I'm mainly the person that's the point person to grade all these quizzes, but like if that ever were to change, it would be, good to make sure we had the same standards. And yeah, having a point person also just helps make sure that it's kind of on their calendar every day to go in and check that. You get in the habit of it, and that way people aren't waiting, for a week for their quiz results. Especially now that we have this micro credential, you want to be able to give them feedback pretty quickly in case they want to keep retaking the quizzes to reach that 80% requirement that they need to have to get that micro credential. So one thing that really helps me is just having a really clear color-coded spreadsheet. And I know that in Canvas, which is what we use to facilitate the course, they have, ways to look at everyone's grades at once. But a lot of times I need to hunt down apprentices, give them updates. It's really easy for me to just see, oh, these people need to retake these quizzes. They didn't do so great on them. These apprentices are already done. They've got 80s and 90s and 100s on everything. They're good. So that's just been something that I've started doing this last year that's made things a little more organized. And then I also have a note here that is just a reminder that it is really important to use the in-person time you have with apprentices to bug them to do the online course if they aren't staying on track. It's a little tricky because it is asynchronous. But you don't want people to fall too far behind. And so with all that being said, it's been really nice for me to just write out a template of things for me to send to apprentices if they do start falling behind. It's really helpful to write down all the information that they need to know about their status and then what they need to do in order to go for the micro-credential in a timely manner. And so toward the end of the 12 months that this last round of apprentices has had, I've also not just been writing this, but then also saying, hey, you have until this date, especially if it's like within a month or so, it's good for them to have that in mind because they probably don't have a sticky note on their computer that says, I registered for the online course on this date last year. You just want to make sure that's on everyone's radar. All right, so on to the website. Having an up-to-date online presence is really important for recruiting new apprentices and host farms and making sure all people that are involved with the program have all the correct information. We're currently undergoing a little bit of a website transfer, and so we've been going through and double checking a lot of this information because it is the beginning of the growing season and you want everyone to have the right info. So it's important to include basic info, have that event calendar, and then give an opportunity for the host farmers to share information about themselves as well. So another thing we use Airtable for is this now hiring table where host farms can share their job opportunities as they may change year to year. And so they not only have their own like web page on our website, but they also have this Airtable where potential apprentices can go in and compare information all in one place. And then a little bit more about the host farmer side of things. I usually do write out a little support checklist in the winter, and I give it to the host farmers and just say, hey, we really want you to be here at this debrief meeting and onboarding meeting in like the late fall and winter. Make sure you have uploaded all your information to that Airtable and you have that job posting up to date. Make sure you get your apprentice to sign that apprenticeship agreement form and you also have signed it. And then, be available for us to come and do a visit with you during the season, especially if you do have an apprentice or if you're a new host farm. And then be sure to come to our host farmer summer meeting too. So it's just good to have all this information to them as early as possible. There are a ton of forums that you may find links to in that apprenticeship toolkit if you open it up. But one of the main ones I want to touch on is the apprenticeship agreement form and then also the one-on-one training record. These are things that we just want to make sure are available to both host farmers and apprentices early. This is a little snippet of what that looks like. Courtney went through some of this information earlier, but there are a whole bunch of other agreement forms or not agreement forms, but like record keeping forms and evaluation forms that we want to make sure are shareable with both parties.
Okay, my turn again. So marketing materials are a very important part of catching the attention of potential apprentices, host farms, and overall just like the general public. Flyers and social media outreach help us to recruit apprentices each season, highlight host farms seeking apprentices, advertise workshops, relay information about the online course, and spotlight apprentices and letting people know what our program and our partners are up to. So we rely heavily on Instagram and Facebook to relay this information, but we also use a listserv to relay this information, which I'll be discussing in a couple of slides. For workshop promotion, host farm promotion, anything that kind of has a common theme, I always try to make kind of graphic templates ahead of time. So I make each graphic different enough that they stand out from one another, but also kind of carry over similar themes from graphic to graphic. I post these graphics about a month in advance, and then a week before the event, I will like do a little animation on the graphic within Canva to repost it to our social media sites so that it feels like new information, but it's really just the same information again. And by creating a reel on Instagram and Facebook, it kind of expands the reach beyond just seeing a regular graphic on your timeline. And so this is our listserv. You can scan that QR code to sign up or just take a little screenshot of the how to join information. But this is just a really great way to stay in the know of all things happening within the Kansas City food system. And to finish out the presentation, I wanted to provide you all with some of our contact information. Everyone's email is listed. You can also contact us, and I'll put this in the chat at growers@ksu.edu. Thank you all so much for attending, and I believe it's time for a Q&A session.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's go into the Q&A. And so one of the first questions we have is about micro credentials. Are there any programs for credentialing through Kansas or Missouri workforce development programs?
Yeah, so that's kind of we on the radar for future development. We have been in contact with I cannot remember what branch of government he works in within the Kansas state government, but he has kind of walked us through the process of what it would look like to become a registered apprenticeship, aka be more of that workforce development program. Um, but yeah, that's kind of future plans, nothing concrete yet.
All right. And then the next question we have is, how many apprentices do you have this year?
We've had 32 applicants this year, which is literally 4 times the applicants that we received last year, so that's huge. I think 3 have rescinded their applications, so we're probably looking about like 23 in the Kansas City area, and I think maybe 5 in our expansion regions.
Awesome. All right. And then another question, what software or platform is used for the shared calendar?
So that is used through or done through Airtable, which I believe is like an online subscription that you can get. And there's a lot of other tools in there as well. I've only worked with like a shareable table, like what you'll find on our website, and then also the calendar. But there's a bunch of templates for a whole lot of other tools that can be really useful as well.
Awesome. All right. And then last question I have here is, what have you done with correctional facilities, and what does partnering with them look like in the future?
So
So
this
go ahead.
Okay. I was gonna say we haven't done a lot of work directly with um any correctional facilities quite yet. We have touched base with a few folks out in Kansas that do work with correctional facilities closer. But that is something that we've talked about integrating the registered apprenticeship um part with as well. And so those two might kind of go hand in hand. Um, and we've been kicking that idea around for maybe a year and a half or so. So that's something that might come down the pipeline in the future. Um, but we haven't had like a super direct contact with working with those populations quite yet. Courtney, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Nope, that's perfect. I did also want to mention somebody in our internal team messaged us. We've been working with the Kansas Department of Commerce and Missouri Department of Labor to get that registered apprenticeship ball rolling.
Awesome. All right. So let's see here. Is this available in South Michigan? If so, post a contact in the chat, please.
We are currently only focused on Kansas and Missouri regions. However, there are apprenticeship programs similar to ours kind of all across the United States. I cannot tell you off the top of my head if there are any apprenticeship programs in South Michigan, though.
And then how many staff members would be required to run a program like this? Is it like 2 full-time employees to run everything, or does it take a few more hands to make that work?
So our situation is a little unique because everyone who works on growing growers spends about a third of their working time on it. So we're all full-time employees, but only can dedicate so much of our time just to various other responsibilities. So kind of with that in mind, I'd say probably 1 to 2 full-time would be about correct if we've got 6 people working 0.3 FTE on the program.
Yeah, and I think that also kind of depends like how in depth too you want to get with it because in the past we haven't had quite this much capacity, but the program has still been around since 2004. And so it kind of just depends. Um, but I think Courtney is right. That's about where we are right now.
All right, and that looks like all the questions that I have here. We do want to mention that we were going to send out a PDF and slides for all the registrants here. So you should be getting that shortly.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I think that's going to conclude our webinar for today. And as Justin said, we will follow up with everyone that registered and send out those slides to you. So thank you very much for attending, and that'll be our webinar. Thank you.